Hungarian folk tales. The astronomer, the thief, the huntsman, and the tailor. Once upon a time there lived a poor man. And the poor man had 4 sons. But the poor man was so poor that he had no money to keep his sons. One day the poor man said, "The time has come for you to leave home and seek your fortunes. You should all go and learn a trade." So the 4 sons set off into the wide world. The sons soon came to a crossroads that branched off into 4 different directions. So the sons agreed to part company and all meet back at the crossroads in a year and a day. Time passed and each of the sons studied a trade. The first son became an astronomer, the second a thief, the third was a huntsman, and the youngest a tailor. So they met again after a year and a day, and they journeyed back home to tell their father of the jobs they now all had. "Well done, sons. I believe you all, but I still would like to see proof of the new trades you practice. You, my son, the astronomer, what do you see on top of that tree?" "I see a nest with 5 eggs, and a golden bird is sitting on them." "You, my son, the thief, if that is indeed your trade, go now to the nest and steal the eggs from under the golden bird without ruffling a feather on its head." So the thief climbed up the tree and succeeded in stealing the eggs unseen, and he gave the eggs to his father. The old man put the eggs on the table. He placed 1 egg at each corner and then put the 5th egg in the middle. "You, my son, the huntsman, if that is indeed your trade, shoot each egg with 1 shot and split them in 2. So the huntsman shot and hit all 5 eggs in turn. "Well done, son. You are a master of your craft." "You, 4th son, the tailor, if that is indeed your trade, stitch all 5 eggs back together so that the chicks inside each survive." So the tailor stitched the eggs back together and did an excellent job of work. But they would not know if all was well until the eggs eventually hatched. "Now, thief, you must put the eggs back under the golden bird unnoticed." The thief succeeded, and only a few days later, all 5 eggs hatched out, and the golden bird was delighted with the chicks. But each chick had a tiny red band around its neck where the tailor had stitched them back together. "Now, my sons, you have proven your trades to me, but now you must prove them to the wide world." News soon came that the princess was lost, so the astronomer's son took out his spyglass and saw the pretty girl sitting on a rocky island in the middle of a vast ocean. And he saw a fierce dragon sleeping on the princess's lap. So the astronomer's son went directly to the king and requested a boat to rescue his royal daughter. The 4 sons voyaged to the rocky island where they discussed how best to save the princess. The tailor's son suggested they shoot the dragon, but the astronomer's son was worried that they would hit the pretty princess. "But you, thief, if you could steal the eggs, steal her from the dragon." And the thief stole the princess unseen. Then they took the girl onto the boat and sailed slowly back to the shore. But that is when the dragon awoke, and the fearsome beast caught sight of them. The princess had gone, and the dragon flew after them. The dragon saw that the boat was nearing the shore and knew that the princess must be on board, so it swooped down to the boat. But the huntsman's son saw the mighty dragon coming, and he shot it in the heart. Then the dragon fell from the sky onto the boat and smashed it into smithereens, leaving only a few planks of floating wood that the sons held onto. Then the huntsman said, "We'll surely perish in these waters." So the tailor's son swiftly stitched the boat back together, and everyone aboard survived. The old king was a very happy man when he saw his daughter again, and he asked the 4 young men, "Which one of you deserves my daughter's hand?" The astronomer's son said, "Me, sire, for I sighted her in the middle of the ocean." The thief said, "Me, sire, for I stole her quietly away." "Seeing her was not enough, brother, if you weren't brave enough to go and get her." Then the huntsman said, "Getting her was not enough, because if I hadn't shot the fearsome dragon, it would have eaten us all up." Then the tailor said, "Only I deserve the princess, sire, because if I hadn't stitched the boat back together, we would have all surely drowned." And the brothers began to fight. So the old king said, "I cannot grant my daughter's hand to all 4 of you, and so instead I shall grant you each a portion of my kingdom. Will that suffice? Because the princess is very pretty, but living in peace is better still." So all 4 sons received a quarter of the kingdom, and they all lived happily ever after. Hungarian folk tales. The Hedgehog. Once upon a time, there lived a merchant, a king, and a poor man. The merchant often went hunting in the forest, and one day he became so very lost that he wandered around for 3 whole days, unable to find his way home. He said, "Oh, if only someone would show me the way out, I'd give him the hand of the most beautiful of my 3 daughters in marriage and 3 sacks of gold. I'll show you the way out if you follow me." The merchant looked down at his feet and saw a snuffling hedgehog. Then the merchant was forced to promise the hedgehog his most beautiful daughter's hand and 3 sacks of gold if he will lead him out of the forest. Then the hedgehog set out, followed by the merchant, and they reached the edge of the forest in no time. The following day, the king also went hunting in the forest, and he also got lost, much like the merchant the day before. The king said, "If only someone would show me the way out, I'd give him the hand of the most beautiful of my 3 daughters in marriage, along with 3 carts of gold." "I'll show you the way out if you follow me." The king looked around to see where the voice was coming from and then saw the hedgehog by his feet. He was so anxious to get out of the forest that he couldn't care less who it was, so he followed the hedgehog and they soon reached the edge of the forest. The following day, the poor man also got lost in the forest. "Oh dear, I have nothing to my name, but even if an ugly beast showed me the way out of this forest, I would willingly adopt it as my own dear child." "I'll show you the way out if you follow me," a voice said. The voice, of course, came from the hedgehog, and it led the poor man to the edge of the forest in no time at all. Time passed, and the merchant, the king, and the poor man had almost forgotten about the little hedgehog. One night, after the poor man had gone to bed, someone knocked on his window. "Father dear, please open the door for me." Who can that be, the poor man wondered, because he knew he had no children. "Hello, Father. I finally come home," the hedgehog said. "Welcome, son. I'm happy you're here," said the poor man. "I am too. And would you please wake my dear mother to make my bed for me?" "Father dear, do you have 2 pennies?" the hedgehog asked. "Yes, I do, my son," said the poor man. "Well then, please go into town, and in the marketplace you'll find a very old lady selling a black cockerel." "Buy it for me," said the hedgehog. "Then go to the saddler, who has a worn-out saddle, and buy that for me too." So the poor man went into town, bought the black cockerel and the worn-out saddle, and took them home, where the hedgehog saddled the cockerel, climbed up onto its back, and rode away as fast as the wind. The hedgehog didn't stop until it reached the home of the merchant, where it said, "Merchant, sir, open the door and let me in." The merchant nearly fell over backwards when he saw the hedgehog, but he had to let it in. Then he called his 3 daughters and told them of the promise he had made to the prickly creature. The merchant's daughters cried and cried, but the hedgehog paid no attention and chose the most beautiful girl and tried to comfort her with the following words: "You are mine, and I am yours, till death do us part." But the pretty girl refused to repeat his words and cried so much that she threw herself down on the ground. But protest as she might, the girl was forced to leave home with the hedgehog. Then the merchant harnessed the horses, put 3 sacks of money into another cart, and off they went with the hedgehog proudly riding its black cockerel alongside. "Are you still crying? I am, and I will cry until my dying day." "In that case," said the hedgehog, "go back to your father." But the hedgehog kept the 3 sacks of gold and took them home to the poor man. Time passed until the day eventually came when the hedgehog saddled its black cockerel and rode off to visit the king of the land. The hedgehog told the king why it had come, hoping the king remembered his promise. "I only wish I had forgotten, but I haven't, and I always keep my word," said the king. He called his 3 daughters and sadly told them what had happened to him in the forest, and now this prickly creature had come here to pick his most beautiful daughter for his wife. "It may think I'm the most beautiful, but I refuse to be a hedgehog's wife. I'd rather die than be a hedgehog's wife. I'll be only too happy to be its wife because it was so kind to my dear father." The king was happy and sad at the same time. He was glad one of his daughters had turned out to be so kind-hearted, but was sad to lose his only kind-hearted daughter. The king loaded silver, gold and diamonds onto 3 carts, harnessed horses to the royal coach, and the princess climbed in. The hedgehog, however, did not go in the coach, but rode alongside on the black cockerel. They had been riding for many hours and were far away from the palace when the hedgehog looked into the coach and was surprised to see the princess happy and not crying. She said, "Why do you insist on riding that black cockerel instead of sitting beside me here in the coach?" "Aren't you afraid of me?" the hedgehog asked. "Why should I, when I know you will do me no harm?" she replied. "Don't you find me ugly?" asked the hedgehog. "Of course not," the princess replied. Then a miracle happened. The hedgehog shook itself and immediately turned into a tall and handsome prince who beamed brighter than the sun. Then the cockerel shook itself and turned into a fabulous stallion. And a palace appeared with walls and windows made of sparkling diamonds. Then they sent for the king, they sent for the poor man, and they sent for everyone in the land to join them at their wonderful wedding feast. And they all lived happily ever after. Hungarian folk tales. The pin, the dog, the crayfish, the egg, and the cockerel. Once upon a time, a very long time ago, there was a little pin that was very bored in the sewing box. And the little pin thought it would go out and see the world. The pin walked and walked, and as it was walking along, it met a dog, and the dog said, "Where are you going, friend?" "Why, I'm going out to see the world." "Then I shall go with you too." "Please do." They walked and walked, and as they were walking, they met a crayfish. The crayfish said, "Where are you going to, friend?" "Why, I'm going out to see the world." "Then I shall go with you too." "Please do." They walked and walked, and they were walking along when they met a rotten egg. The egg said, "Where are you going, friend?" "Why, I'm going out to see the wide world." "Then I shall go with you too." "Please do." They walked and walked, and they were walking when they met a cockerel. The cockerel said, "Where are you going to, friend?" "Why, I'm going out to see the world." "Then I shall go too." "Please do." They walked and walked until they arrived in the back of beyond, and night began to fall around them and the sky grew dark. The four of them looked for a place to lay their heads for the night, but they found themselves in a vast forest and searched for a place to sleep. Then they caught sight of a cottage where they decided to go and ask for shelter. They walked into the cottage, but found that it was empty inside. "It doesn't matter that no one's at home, we can still sleep here for the night." And each found a place to lay its head. The pin stuck into a towel, the egg rolled into the ashes, the crayfish sat in the wash basin, the cockerel roosted on top of the fence, and the dog lay down on the shady porch. Then they all fell fast asleep because they were tired from all the walking they had done that day. cottage was owned by 3 foxes that had gone down into the town to steal chickens from farms as the darkness descended. Now the 3 foxes came running home. As they ran, twigs cracked under their feet, and the cockerel heard them approaching and crowed a warning to its friends. The foxes stopped for a second when they heard the crowing, but then they ran quickly on. Then the dog took notice and began to bark. The foxes stopped again when they heard the dogs barking. What could be happening at the cottage, they thought. But then they carried quickly on. When the foxes arrived, the cockerel crowed, the dogs snapped at their heels, but they carried quickly on into the cottage. But a terrible surprise still awaited them. The father fox said to its son, "Quickly go and look for a coal in the ashes, that we can light a lamp and see what's happening in the cottage." One of the fox's sons went to the fireplace and sorted through the ashes. But the egg blew up in the fox's face, so it ran to the basin for water where the crayfish lay that pinched the fox hard. It tried and tried to shake the crayfish from its paw. It grabbed the towel to dry itself and the pin pricked it sharply. "Run away! We need to run from this terrible place!" And the foxes ran and ran and ran away, and may still be running till this very day.